Good morning, Utsoda. Namaste. And namaste, everyone. Welcome to Hindu Lounge. Hindu Lounge is live and it's live every week at 11 o'clock Eastern. This is Hindu Lounge. Hindu Lounge is the show that brings you contemporary American Hindu issues. Hindu Lounge comes live at 11 o'clock Eastern and 8 o'clock Pacific. Hindu Lounge is brought to you by HinduPack.
Adiva, your sound is still playing in the background. The music is still playing in the background, so we want to restart again.
All right.
Now it's better.
So welcome to Hindu Lounge. Hindu Lounge is brought to you by HinduPack. HinduPack is the policy research and advocacy initiative of World Hindu Council of America, VHPA. And with me, as always, is Utsoda Chakrabarti. Utsoda is the Executive Director of HinduPack, and I am Ajay Shah. I am the President of VHPA, or World Hindu Council of America. We are glad you joined us today. We are celebrating Utsoda. It is our 75th episode. We have been now doing this for 75 weeks. And, Utsoda, first of all, good morning, namaste, welcome to you. And my first question for you is, it's not scripted. So my first question for you is, did you think that 75 weeks on, we would still be doing this?
Well, to be honest with you, Ajay bhai, I did not. I did not, because when we started this show, we were at the height of COVID, the COVID pandemic. We really didn't know how online viewership, online viewing, online-based programs. I personally didn't assume that it's going to be around after couple of months, after maybe a year at most. Also, we didn't really know if we would have the materials and we do know that we have the material, but we didn't know if we will have the for lack of a better phrase, enthusiasm and appetite for carrying this forward so long. But as things panned out, and I think I have to give credit to you, Ajay bhai, for this, that you showed a lot of determination in ensuring that we really put our 2 cents, as they say in America. We put our 2 cents of thoughts into this every week, and that is all it took. Because most of us, people like yourself, myself, and many of the people we work with, they have spent years and years and years working on the issues and the topics and the causes that we discuss here. And we had a lot of things to say, as you can see. I'm pretty sure people have realized that by now. So yes, we are doing it. 75th episode. Great job.
And I must say that inflation adjusted, the 2 cents is now worth $2. We're not giving 2 cents worth. We are actually giving $2 worth. And I don't know why you're underestimating yourself. I think our opinions are worth at least $2.
Especially with the current growing inflation, I agree. Yeah.
That's why it needs a special drum roll too. Hey, Utsoda, we have a really, really good topic for today. Today, we are going to talk about 2 things. One, a really positive, impactful topic, and the other one is, is somewhat somber and really disturbing. So let me talk about the first topic. Today, we are going to talk about the impact that American Hindus are having on global Hindu Dharma Hindus. So Hindu diaspora around the world. And when I say around the world, I actually mean including India. So American Hindus are making a big impact everywhere. And so that this is not surprising, right? Because we live in America.
I just want not to miss the joke, the timing of the joke, where you inadvertently called the Hindus of India as the diaspora, and I think I think
I
that was
actually
very
like it. I
that was
actually
very
like it.
interesting.
I, from our perspective, from the American perspective, Hindus who live in India are Hindu part of Hindu diaspora, right? So it was a well
That's very
chosen word for that.
that's very yeah, that's very telling.
And so before we dive into it, I also want to say that the second topic we are going to talk about is unprecedented amount of killing and two ends of India, one at two corners of India. In Jammu and Kashmir, Hindus were targeted and killed, and so were the Hindus in Bangladesh. And this kind of targeted killing of Hindus, is you would think that in 21st century we would be living in a more enlightened age, and people would not be getting killed in the name of religion. But it just so happens that in both these places, in Kashmir and in Bangladesh, Hindus are getting killed in the name of religion. So that I want to start by with the first topic, and we'll talk about it. We'll try to get people who are at the protest site. As you know, that there are protests going on right now in Boston and other cities, and vigils being held. And we'll try to get some of these vigil participants in on this show live if possible. Let me start with the first topic, which is what does the American Hindu mean to the rest of the world, rest of the Hindus in the world? And I think we are in a unique position, Utsada. We are in a unique position because we sit in America, and America is a country that was built on certain ideals, and these certain ideals that America was built on, the freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, and the separation of power between church and state. These are the kinds of ideals that that form the basis of America. And people who founded America also thought that America has this exceptional mission in this world. And people who have lived in America for a while know this as American exceptionalism. So American exceptionalism, Utsoda, is that is an idea that America or the United States is inherently different from other nations. Okay, its political system, its historical development, and it doesn't mean that it's different and it's designed to be different. It doesn't mean that America is perfect. And that is why people in America always use the phrase that we are working towards a more perfect union, right? So it's not like that there is a country that was from the beginning perfect. Nobody would, in the right mind, would say that. When America fought for independence and got the independence from British, very few Americans had a right to vote. There was still slavery. Women couldn't vote, and that is not a sign of an exceptional country. But the founders always knew that someday this country, America, would overcome these deficiencies and become a more perfect union. And it's still work in progress. It is not done yet, right? So I think that is so the idea of this new nation with liberty, equality before law, the rule of law, all of these things, democracy, representative democracy, a republic. These are the ideals on which America was built. And so that then we we take it from there, and then we say, the 20th century was really even more exceptional for America, right?
So Ajiva, as you said, the reason America is looked upon, or America looks itself as well, and the rest of the world has validated it quite a bit over the last 100 years, is because America is a nation that developed with the Industrial Revolution. And because it developed with the Industrial Revolution, it did not carry the baggages uh, as much as many other countries did of a pre-industrial revolution society. That's the positive side of it. There are, of course, many negative sides to that as well, and that can be discussed another day, another show. But America really, as a country, showed itself to be exceptional in the 20th century, and it took upon itself the responsibility. And many people would argue that actually it did a pretty decent job in doing it compared to other world world influencers, other nations that had tremendous influences over the world. In one of the in one of the most benign ways it could, even though there could be an argument made that America is the only country in the world that has dropped nuclear weapons, for example, and that's a strong argument to make. But America still brought upon in the 20th century values and ideas that most other nations that ruled big chunks of the world did not like or accept or follow. And in some ways this is very reminiscent, even though most Western scholars would hate to admit this, and they keep comparing America and its growing values. In fact, that's how they even design their national buildings to the Roman and the Greek societies, because that's how they associate their own pre-Christian history to democracy and openness. But in reality, actually, America should be America's rise in the 20th century in terms of its moral values should be compared much more to the rise of ancient Hindu Bharat in terms of its efforts to be less invasive and less aggressive in when it's trying to dominate the world. Of course, that's an arguably debatable topic, but that's largely mostly accepted in the world. Much more, America was a much more benign global power than most other colonial powers that existed before them.
So that just as the 20th, just as we said that America was founded on American exceptionalism, and I know that a lot of people in today's world don't want to hear that, and they take a political issue. For most part, that idea, those ideals hold, and I want to connect that with what I would call the Hindu exceptionalism. And Hindu exceptionalism to me is something that almost every Hindu in the world would instantly recognize. Hindu exceptionalism to me, Utsada, is universal principles of Hindu Dharma that don't exist in any other faith. For example, Hindus say, Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, let all be happy, let all be peaceful. Not just people who worship one particular god, not just someone who practices one particular practice of ritual or worships one book or something like that. Hindus say, Ekam satah vipra bahuda vadanti. Truth is one, but the sages look at it from different perspective or different ways, or they have different ways of reaching the truth. Hindus say, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Entire universe, the entire creation is one family. We are not saying only human beings. The entire creation. We are not saying only earth, entire creation. We say, Isa Vasyam Idam Sarvam. God pervades the entire creation. These Utsavas are universal principles on the basis of which the religious philosophies, the scriptures, the ways of worship, the rituals, all of them that cumulatively make up Hindu Dharma are based. That Utsavada, openness, freedom to practice your faith, freedom to practice spirituality, freedom of thinking goes beyond just freedom of speech. Because even the countries that have freedom of speech did quite allow freedom of spiritual expression, but Hindus did. And so that is why there is, I would say, and I would strongly argue that there is such a thing as Hindu exceptionalism. Okay, something that is a gift of Hindus to the world. This idea that there is a global village and we are all part of this global village.
Also the idea of minimally invasive outreach of ideas. So what is unique to Hindu exceptionalism, Ajay bhai, because you gave the shlokas, the Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti, all these they manifest themselves in a worldview where there is minimally invasive sharing and discussing of ideas and things that come out of it, because everything originates with an idea. Even us farming as humanity came from an idea of plucking the seed and eating it, plucking the fruit and eating it somewhere. So from hunter gatherers to the evolution of farming, and everything starts with an idea. And what fundamentally the Hindu universalism concept brings about is this spread of ideas in minimally invasive ways, and that very fundamental step makes it much more softer on the world as well as on humanity. So that's I think that is something that is very unique to Hindu Dharma, and history has proved that it's not just a theory that we talk about, but it is. If you look at the last 5,000 years of human history, you can actually see that it has its impact in real terms. So it's not just a theory. Hindu exceptionalism is there. It is there to see if you really look at it. And the very testament that despite Hindus being the oldest religion in the world, they still have the world's third largest following. It is a testament to its exceptionalism. And
Absolutely.
and I think that's why we today would like to juxtapose Hindu exceptionalism in a timeline, which is very different from the American history, which is a very short timeline, but it still there is a juxtaposition to be made, and that's what we are going to discuss today.
So one thing to point out before we go to the timeline is that the reason why Hindus feel at home in America and Hindus thrive in America is because the idea of American exceptionalism and Hindu exceptionalism in terms of freedom. I'm taking certain aspects of it in terms of freedom, in terms of rule of law, in terms of freedom of expression, in terms of the uh, allowing people to practice the faith they want to practice. All of these things come together in American exceptionalism and Hindu exceptionalism. And with that, I know that you want to dive into the Hindu inspirations in America. Unless you have other points, please feel free to share your screen and play the video that you have.
Actually, Ajay, you have the video that.
I cannot put the so that as you recall, I cannot play the sound from this. So you'll have to do it. You'll have to
Okay.
share.
Okay. Let me try to share my screen.
In the meantime, I want to welcome everyone who has joined, including Dhavalbhai, Pawanji, and Rashmiji, and many other people who have joined. These are the people who have put something on the chat. We are trying to bring people who are at the protest site in Boston live on this show, and if they can make it, we can bring them live and they can talk about the protest that they're doing. Usada, here is your screen being shared.
Okay, Ajay, I see the screen, and let me go and start playing this, and then you will be able to see. Let me know if you hear the sound, okay?
Yep.
We knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
So the reason I use this video is because what you see happening here is the person who is speaking here is Oppenheimer, probably the one single individual who had the most impact on on the history of the 20th century, because he led the Manhattan Project that created the nuclear devices, atomic bomb. That probably is the atomic bomb is, I believe, the most important single individual component that changed the world in the 20th century. And I think the person who created that, as you see him speak, uh, actually looks at it, the creation of the nuclear weapon, as he looks at it in the context of Bhagavad Gita and the Mahabharata conflict. And for somebody like Oppenheimer, who, by the way, as the name suggests, was of Jewish origin, to have such a fundamental impact of Bhagavad Gita in his own life, where when he's talking about the nuclear explosion, he's talking about how Bhagwan Krishna, here he mentions Vishnu, which actually is very interesting. The fact that he knows that Bhagwan Krishna is an avatar of Lord Vishnu is also very telling, shows the amount of depth to which he himself and many people like him, Americans, starting with Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau, and many Americans actually went and studied on their own volition, because the Hindus at that time were super colonized. We probably are still colonized, so we didn't make an effort to give the knowledge of Hindu Dharma to these people. And these were important players who shaped the last 200 years of human history, especially Oppenheimer, who played a tremendous role in shaping the 20th century. In my opinion, probably one of the top 5 people who impacted the 20th century. And how much impact Bhagavad Gita and Hindu philosophies, Hindu thought processes had on these people is really something to think about and something to talk about as well. I mean, we are talking about it here. I think most Hindus around the world, and especially in America, should learn to understand these, and it will actually help them present themselves as better Hindus and more influential Hindus in the American public space. But that was just an example of the role Hindu Dharma played in shaping the thought process of most important players of the 19th and 20th century.
So now let's take a step back. Let's take a step back to how Hindu Dharma came to America in the recent times. The first proponent of Hindu Dharma in America was Swami Vivekananda, in a big way. The Hindus have been in America since 1700s, 1800s. But even there was a woman who came here and did her medical doctorate degree as one of the first Hindu students to have come to America. So Hindus have been in America for a long time. But as to talk about Hindu Dharma specifically, the first person to come to America was Swami Vivekananda. What is Swami Vivekananda's contribution to American thinking? So now all the people who are listening here today, I want to let you know that we are building up to, and people who have just joined, I just want to make sure that we tell them that we are talking about what Hindus in America mean to the global Hindu diaspora, including Hindus in India. So we started with American exceptionalism. We started with American Hindu exceptionalism. We talked about the 20th century being American Hindu century. Now we are talking about how Hindus came to America. And then once all of this historic background is presented, then we will start talking about what are the individual issues where American Hindus have brought about the change in global Hindu thinking, and how American Hindus are continuously impacting the Hindu thought around the world. So let's start with Swami Vivekananda. Oh, you're on mute, Utsava.
So if you look at Swami Vivekananda's, what Swami Vivekananda did, and the role he played in in framing American thought, I'm not sure if everybody knows his interaction with the great minds. I mean, another American mind who is known for good and bad things, American, which is Edison and Nikola Tesla. Both of them, uh, Vivekananda had impact on. Tesla, the most young people probably just know Tesla as being the car that they drive, which is expensive and is fully electric. But Tesla was a scientist who made tremendous leaps in the field of understanding the nature of electricity. Originally a Serbian, but again, traveled to America, a unique American success story. Could have been a bigger success story, but for Edison, that's a different show. But Vivekananda actually corresponded with him and discussed Hindu philosophy and Vedanta with him, and he was tremendously influenced by it. In fact, I will like to quote when Vivekananda spoke at the Parliament of World Religions. This is what the New York Herald wrote, and this is just a quote from it. Swathed in orange turban, Vivekananda became the star of the parliament. Vivekananda is undoubtedly the greatest figure in the Parliament of Religions. After hearing him, we feel how foolish it is to send missionaries to this learned nation. And they're talking about the land of Bharat. Imagine this. This is the headline from the New York Herald. From more
And
than
this is the time when India was still colonized by.
I was going to say that you hear this as a headline in an American New York newspaper at a time when there is colonization in this world, there is full racism and slavery in this world, there is 100 years of British rule already that has happened in India, and there has been 500 to 600 years, depending on which part of the Indian subcontinent you're from, 500 to 1,000 years of Islamic colonization that has already happened. So after 700 years, 800 years of fully being colonized and exploited, this is what one Hindu monk had to offer to America, and this is how it was presented. I repeat, the last sentence of the New York Herald article quote was, after hearing him, we feel how foolish it is to send missionaries to this learned nation. Learned nation, after 800 years of exploitation and colonialism. Imagine what Bharat and Hindu Dharma was before that, 800 years before. So I just wanted to quote this because these things are not understood today and are lost in time. But that is the impact of Hindu Dharma on American exceptionalism itself. The Nikola Teslas of the world were the representative of American exceptionalism in many ways. So go ahead, Ajay.
No, so keep going. The next, after Swami Vivekananda, the other saints who have had and sadhus who have come to America and have had a similar impact in various aspects of American life. One of the saints or sadhus who came to America is Srila Prabhupada of ISKCON. Right? He came to America in 1965.
Yes, and the one thing that is, I mean, there have been many enlightened leaders, thought leaders, Hindu saints who came to the US after Vivekananda. But there is a unique story to be told about Srila Prabhupada. And the reason we say this story, and he came in 1965, is because of the immense power that he came with, despite being a 69-year-old man alone with literally rupees 40. I repeat, rupees 40, which is less than $1 in today's money, probably was worth a couple of dollars back in 1965. He came to the US after a 35-day journey on a ship with absolutely no money at the age of 69 for 3 months. And again, he made a tremendous impact on America in one of the most prominent Hindu, I think, influencers of the 20th century. And he seeded what became one of the most successful Hindu sampradayas in America and around the world. Today ISKCON is in the news today, as in literally today and yesterday. ISKCON has been in the news for a very sad reason, which is, we'll talk about it, how their temple has been destroyed in Bangladesh and how Hindus have been killed there. But there is what Srila Prabhupada achieved in 1965 and there onwards made a tremendous impact on the world and on the world of Hindus in India and around the world. And that was because he came to America at the age of 69. And he understood that. Like Vivekananda, Prabhupada understood that the 20th century is an American century, and any prasar or promotion of dharma in the 20th century needs to begin in America, because that's where the ideas would be seeded. And I think he got it right. He insisted on coming here at the age of 69 for this reason. And the rest, as they say, is history. Ajay bhai.
So that I want to then go to the next, one of the next religious teachers who came to America, and I want to share this picture with you and maybe have you talk a little bit about this one.
Absolutely. Yes. So, and of course, this is a wonderful picture, because the people you see Maharshi Mahesh Yogi, and not many young people today know the name of Maharshi Mahesh Yogi, but
The Maharishi University in Iowa is doing fantastic.
Doing fantastic. They may have many young people may have heard Jim Carrey talk about it, because he's one of the followers, and he's a very ardent votary and supporter of the Maharshi Mahesh Yogi University. But what is unique is that Maharshi Mahesh Yogi brought Hindu Dharma to, again, in major influencers in the world in those days, in the 60s and the 70s. And, as you see in this picture, these are the Beatles. And again, most young people won't know who the Beatles were today. Beatles were before my times as well, because I grew up in the 90s and late 80s, and that's when Beatles were already gone. But the Beatles were one of the most popular bands that ever existed in the world, popular music producers of music in the world. And they were ardent followers of Maharshi Mahesh Yogi and practiced Hindu philosophy for most of their professional careers, like when they were at the peak of their careers. And you may go back and look up, they built beautiful temples. They actually supported the ISKCON movement as well around the world. So,
I mean, the ISKCON Mandir in UK, one of the biggest ISKCON Mandirs in the world, has been funded by one of the Beatles.
Yes, that's correct. And George Harrison, to his last days, he died a couple of years ago, was he loved Hindu Dharma and was a strong practitioner of Hindu philosophy in his personal life. But the point we are bringing these things up is because these people, in their own ways, impacted how the world looked at Hindu Dharma. Now, we can have another show critiquing many of the things that could have been done, but hindsight is 2020. So we can go back, and that's what we do. Our job is to analyze and present ideas and share them. So we should probably do a show, Ajay bhai, where we can critically look at many of our gurus, our influencers, our thought leaders, and make a hindsight is 2020 analysis of what could have been done to be better, so that we do things better in the future. But there is absolutely no denying that the role that Maharshi Mahesh Yogi, the role that Srila Prabhupada, the role that Swami Vivekananda, the role as many other, and we are going to name more people.
Yeah, in the very early days of Hindus in the in 19th and 20th century, when they started going outside of Bharat, one of the Hindu religious leaders or sadhus who swamis was Swami Tilak, and he went around the world, including South America and Central America. Especially, he still has an ashram or a center rather in Brazil that he had established, and he was one of the guides behind Vishwa Hindu Parishad of America as well. And he, people like him who traveled across the world, who traveled across the US and inspired people to form institutions like Hindu University of America, which came to fruition about 20 years after he passed away. And today, Hindu University is experiencing this revival. But idea of Hindu university and using America as a place to create a university is again one of these ideas that is again uh, for a reason, and the reason is that ideas will flourish in America. They'll take roots in America, and from America, because these ideas are so in tune with American way of living, these ideas will then percolate across the world. In this century, along the same time, actually, last century, in 1900s, Swami Chinmayananda came to US, and the first time when he came to US, and he was somewhat disturbed when he saw the Hindu kids growing up in America, and they were not there were no proper places to impart the Hindu samskars to these kids, or the Hindu religious education to these kids. And as today you see, some, of course, we should mention that Swami Chinmayananda is also founder of the Vishwa Hindu Parishad in Bharat. And that foundation of Vishwa Hindu Parishad inspires everyone in the world, including us. And it is through that inspiration that Vishwa Hindu Parishad of America was founded, a separate organization, but the same inspiration. And so Swami Chinmayananda came to US, and so that he went around. I still remember going to a VHPA conference in 1984 when I, as a student, and Swami Chinmayananda actually saying that now that you are living in America, don't worry about the politics in India as much, or don't worry about the things that are, as a Dharma Bhumi, of course, you care for it, and you have your thoughts and your heart in there and all that. But he said that you're in America, why don't you look at the, be participatory in American society, and be participatory in American way of life, and we talk about Hindu Dharma in American context. And I think what we are doing today is consistent with that. So the seeds of that were planted in 1984 or even before. You see some of the other other gurus, other swamis, other sadhus who are coming to America, whether it's Mata Amritananda Mai, with centers all over America with a lot of followers in the Western world, or in the Far East and other places, South America, and you see that Hindu thought is propagated all around the world. Sri Ravi Shankar is another person who has several centers here that are established across the world, and a lot of followers in America. You see someone like Sadhguru, who has an ashram in Tennessee, been following all across US. You see, and there's the followers of many of these sampradayas, of these swamis, of these sadhus, of these sants that are all over around America. How is that important? So that the reason it is important is it is the multicultural reach of these sadhus and swamis and gurus. They reach out not only to people who are of ethnic Indian origin, but they have in many cases broken that barrier. You just mentioned, Utsada, Maharshi Mahesh Yogi. You mentioned ISKCON and Srila Prabhupada. These are the people who actually not only they didn't go out to convert anyone, but they attracted a lot of people to Hindu way of life, to Hindu philosophy, to Hindu Dharma, to Hindu Sanskriti. And that in itself has brought about changes, not just in America. It started in America. They established themselves, their roots in America, but because America playing such a pivotal role in the world, these thoughts now permeated from America to rest of the world, right?
That's absolutely correct, Ajay bhai. But I just want to bring about a small anecdote along these lines, because just to show you an example of what role the Hindu leadership in America played. Not too long ago, in 2015, when in the Middle East, ISIS was at its peak, and when there was a tremendous amount of atrocities being committed on the Yazidi community, which is a proto-Vedic community, very small in number, less than 1 million around the world, and they were being exterminated. Nobody cared. Nobody cared in the world. And at that time, it was the Hindu Americans, and with the blessings of Sri Ravi Shankar, that reached out to the Syrian government, reached out to the Iraqi government, they reached out to American government, reached out to the British government, that pushed them and nudged them to take steps to urgently save and protect the Yazidis. And it's in many ways a sad testament about how the world works, but it's also in some ways a testament to the fact that Hindu Americans, in their own little ways, have played a significant role in helping other communities using the platform of America, something that Hindus could not have done in some other part of the world, because just the role the Americans play in the global scheme of things in the world order. So American Hindus have a tremendous power on an individual basis, at the level of the society, and at the level of the nation, primarily based on the position that America holds and continues to hold today, in the last 150 years, 100 years, in the world order. The world order has America at its pinnacle still. I mean, there are going to be conversations and debates about where it's going to be 100 years from now or 50 years from now, and that's a very honest conversation to be had. But as of now, Hindus in America have a pivotal role in the world because of them being in America and the way America is in the global order. Your sound is switched off, Ajay.
I am, you brought out the political influence of Hindus and around the world, right? Human rights are inherent in Hindu Dharma, and Hindus in America have contributed through the history quite a bit about the human rights issues. So, for example, so that in 1975, when Indira Gandhi imposed emergency in India, the Hindus in America came together under the banner of Friends of India Society International, or FISI, FISI. This organization was at the forefront of seeking democracy in India. They absolutely, they they impact. I mean, they gathered people from around the US. At that time, there were not that many Hindus in America, a few 100,000 if at all. But they gathered not just the Hindus, but they gathered Hindus in a way to make an impact on the larger or broader American society, to bring about the awareness of the suppression of freedom in India. I don't know if you recall, or if you were even born at the time, but there was I was in school, and I can tell you that there was people were scared to speak. A lot of people I know who were part of Vidyarthi Parishad were arrested and were put in jail. A lot of people actually died of torture. And the 18 months of emergency was probably the worst time in Indian history when it came to suppression of freedom.
I was actually born right as the emergency was ending, 1977.
The reason I bring this up is because a lot of there was a lot of international pressure on India to get rid of emergency, and that was engineered by Hindus who were sitting in America. And go ahead.
No, you are right, and I recall, just in the same vein, I do remember that some of the top leaders of India who had been arrested during emergency even escaped to America and were able to find.
Subramanian Swami was one of them.
Subramaniam Swami was one of them, and found refuge in amongst the Hindus in America. So that's a tangible way to see how American Hindus played a significant role even in politics of India. And not just that, I mean, I'll tell you a personal anecdote, Ajay bhai. When I was in middle school, in 1992, 93, at that time, I used to read, and the nature of media in India and how colonized they are, even when they were critical of what Hindu Americans were doing in terms of reviving Hindu Dharma, whether it is the Ram Janmabhoomi movement, whether it is uh, the Dharma Prasar Yatras that American Hindus are doing. My inspiration to do many of the things I am doing today actually started from that time, because I saw that you know we in India growing up understood Americans to be people, Hindus in America to be people who were successful in their lives, who had gone to Western countries as part of as part of their success story. When I saw them as people who were leading inspirations for Hindu activism from America, whether it was the Ram Janmabhoomi movement, whether it is the Dharma Prasar Yatra, whether it is the Global Vision 2000 that was done in 1993. I read about it in newspapers and I thought to myself, well, if Hindus in America are doing it, there must be something right that we need to look into. It seeded the thought of exploring the Hindutva movement because American Hindus embraced it in large numbers. And I can assure you that it's not just me or my generation which went through that. There are thousands and thousands of young people in India today also who get inspired by this.
Absolutely. So the I still remember, now that you mentioned Ram Janmabhoomi, let me give you another anecdote, and this is the one where uh, the in 1992, after the Babri structure was brought down, uh, a group of Hindus in Southern California. So I used to live in Southern California at the time, and a group of Hindus got together and purchased an ad supporting the Ram Janmabhoomi movement and the bringing down of the Babri structure, which was a sign of slavery, as all the slavery monuments should come down someday or the other. And so this full page ad was placed in New York Times, and this had a tremendous impact on Hindus living not just in America, but Hindus who were living in all other countries, including, and the biggest impact was actually in India, where Hindus in India knew that they have allies beyond their own borders. And not only beyond their own borders, but they have allies in America. And American Hindus, I mean, because of uh, the uh, the level of education, the level of basically bootstrapping their lives and coming up, the prosperity that American Hindus have enjoyed, the American Hindu voice carries. And when when this advertisement was published, it it gave a huge morale boost to people who were facing the incessant attacks or non-stop attacks from the leftist media and the some of the other countries around India and all of that. And that is the role that Hindus in America have played in Bharat. Okay, and that's why I said that global diaspora, including Hindus in Bharat. So that I want to it's not just that, right? I mean, I want to take you through uh, I want to take you through some of the I think in your notes you have said that Global Vision 2000 was another one of those programs. Absolutely, Utsada. To this day, it is the largest Hindu program in America with 10,000 attendees who are adults, 10,000 participants plus 2,400 student participants, and in DC commemorating Swami Vivekananda's speech to the Parliament of Religion, uh, and 100 years of that, right? And that again had impact on Hindus everywhere, impact on Hindus in Caribbean, impact on Hindus in South America, and in Europe, in Africa, and in Bharat, that now Hindus have come of age. 100 years after the Swami Vivekananda gave a talk at Parliament of Religion, now Hindus have established in America. Also, then let me take you through some innovations now that Hindus have made in America, and that are impacting Hindus everywhere in the world. Now, some of these inventions we may think that are done in America, some of them may have come out in Africa first or UK first, but for large part they became popularized after they were institutionalized, if you will, in America. So one of them is, for example, the idea of a Hindu Sunday school, the Bal Vihars, the Bal Gokulam, the Pathshalas, and all of that. In India, you don't need that, because everyone learns about Hindu Dharma through osmosis, through their family, through their community, through communal celebration of festivals where everyone comes together and celebrates festivals together. You don't need a Bal Vihar in India, but or Bal Gokulam or Pathshala or whatever else, right? But the Sunday school concept, again, it might have been practiced in UK, it might have been practiced in Africa years before in America, but once it got institutionalized in America, it became very popular. The same goes with summer camps. The concept of summer camps did not exist in India. I mean, we had summer vacations and we enjoyed the summer vacations, but to have a 10-day summer camp to learn about Hindu Dharma never that doesn't happen in India even today, for large part, right? There might be some isolated cases now, but when it became popular in America, around the world, Hindus started adopting that. The youth conferences and summer camps, youth conferences where all the youth come together and talk about Hindu issues. Very rare, even today in India. I mean, now some of these things are catching up in India. It's not like they're not there, but these are the innovations that Hindus outside of India have actually made. Before I go to the next set, Utsada, your thoughts on the children and youth oriented programs and the innovation in Hindu Dharma, that American Hindu innovation, or I just to be, absolutely, non-parochial, I would say there's not just, American Hindus, it may be African Hindus or UK Hindus or the Hindu diaspora may have also done it. Go ahead.
No, I think a tremendous amount of work has been done by the Hindu communities in America in this aspect. A lot more needs to be done. So part of the reason why you see, I want to give a comparison of why this has been done well to some extent from the way the anti-Hindu people look at it. Part of the reason why you had the Dismantle Global Hindutva conference just 2 months ago is because the people who don't want Hindus to succeed or even exist are upset because American Hindus have made an impact to some extent. I mean, we could have done better. There is no doubt about that. Since the 1980s, 1990s, when Hindus in America grew in significant numbers from what they were, especially since the 1990s, their population has grown significantly higher, at a much faster rate. There could have been much more done. And we have done shows on it. We have been very self-critical. Part of the reason the reason why we do what we do is because we are self-critical about some of the missed opportunities and all. But having said that, the very fact that you have a movement around the world by people who hate Hindus and by people who don't want Hindus to exist to target American Hindus, the part of the reason for that is that American Hindus have made significant influence in everyday Hindu life around the world, in how Hindus operate and act and advocate and speak around the world, and that in itself makes a lot of means a lot in terms of Hindu community.
Yep. So that the other places where Hindus have made an impact to the global global Hindu community is this concept of satsang. It's not like we invented the concept of satsang, but concept of satsang is not as prominent in India. People go to mandirs and people, every day, and people worship there and all that. But when Hindus came to America, there were no real mandirs to go to. There were a few mandirs across America, and very hard to go to these mandirs because of geographic distance and all of that. So going to mandirs was difficult, and Hindus who came to America wanted their kids to learn about Hindu Dharma. They wanted to keep the Hindu practices alive. They wanted to talk about, they wanted to discuss, say, Bhagavad Gita, or come together and sing bhajans and all of that. And so they started organizing these satsangs. And the communities across America are built on satsang. And these satsangs, the small gatherings of 10 people, 5 people, 10 people, 50 people, 100 people, meeting every single week, that is a concept, that is an innovation of American Hindu Dharma and a gift to global Hindus. To me, so that these are the things that keep Hindu Dharma alive. And because this has now been investigated, this has now been institutionalized in America, it has, it has spread all over the world among the Hindu diaspora. So the other innovations of Hindus in America, and I have some pride in saying this, Utsada, and that is that I don't think that anywhere in the world there was a student group uh, that was a Hindu student group. Okay, it did not exist. And so one of the things that one of the things that I want, Hindu Students Council, when it got established in America, was the first Hindu student movement group that was ever formed anywhere in India, anywhere in the world rather, and it didn't even exist in India. After Hindu Students Council was formed in America, there was a National Hindu Student Association that was formed in UK, a similar organization in Canada, a similar organization in other countries. They were all formed. But having a student organization, a Hindu student organization, was a pioneering thought that originated in America. So that there are other things. For example, the Hindu University of America, I mentioned that a little while ago. The very first university, Hindu university, was founded in America. And that idea, I'm sure, will take off across the world. But this is an institution to impart Hindu education from the Hindu perspective. And that was founded in America. So that the very first anti-defamation, and word anti-defamation is copyrighted or whatever. So
I want to say something about the Hindu University for a moment here.
Yes.
I have to be honest about the fact that the Hindu University of America is about 25 years overdue.
25 years old now. And it's going for a big revival.
As an institution, it should have been established and it should have been at its peak 25 years ago. But it's never too late. That would have made a huge impact in terms of outreach. But what is even sadder is that it is still in India. It was only a couple of years ago that the first Hindu focused academic course, proper Hindu focused academic education, began at the college level in India. The fact that the only country in the world which has a significant Hindu population, and the only country where Hindus can to some extent call it a safe haven, did not have a Hindu focused education system at the college level, a Hindu focused curriculum. And it took 70 years plus for that country to actually come up with its own historical narrative. It's a sad testimony to the level of colonization Hindus themselves had in the Indian subcontinent. And that's why Hindu University of America has a special significance, because it even came before in Hindu higher education was prominent in India, which is where most of the Hindus around the world live.
So I am on the board of trustees of Hindu University of America. I can tell you that it's a very difficult process to start a university and to sustain the university. And I can tell you that the management that is in place today, with Kalyan Vishwanathanji as the president of the university, have taken they expended tremendous amount of effort to establish this version of Hindu University of America. A lot of ideas take a while to mature, but I have no doubt in my mind that from this point onwards, Hindu University will fulfill not just the need of Hindus in America, but everyone in America who desires to learn about Hindu Dharma, to set the right narrative of Hindu Dharma, not just in America but globally. We're now getting students from across the world, and there's a huge influx of, I just saw some data where people from as far away as Australia and people from other parts of Southeast Asia, of course Europe, Caribbean, other places, are beginning to enroll in the courses of Hindu University. But it requires building a university is a generational work. I mean, it takes many generations to establish a university. Very few universities, I know a few universities that have come up in 10, 15 years and have become prominent. But usually, building a university is someone's life work, and that is being done now. I think so that we should have a focus program on Hindu University one day.
I was
But
going to say that. I was going to say that because you know, as more and more people listen to us, as we bring out our ideas to people, uh, younger Hindu Americans should make it a almost a go-to place to get a few courses, attend a few classes, and get some credits, and make Hindu University a proper resource for their own personal development and growth. And I think what you guys are doing, what Kalyanji is doing, is fantastic. I mean, we should actually have him on the show as a guest
we
someday.
should have him as a guest on one of these days. And I wouldn't count myself as you guys, because sitting on a board of trustees does not qualify one to be doing work. It's participating in but it's certainly the hard work that is being
Knowing
done.
you well, knowing you well for so long, I think you are participating. Trust me, you cannot be on anything without participating.
So then let me give you some other examples where Hindu innovations in America have driven the Hindu narrative across the world, Hindu movement across the world. The very first movement against defamation of Hindu symbols, Hindu deities, Hindu culture, Sanskriti, practices, all of that was started in America in 1997 as American Hindus Against Defamation, or AHAD. Utsada, when I grew up in India, I saw Hindu images of Hindu deities in every product category you can imagine. And people would discard this, trample with their feet on it, and nobody cared. Nobody cared. And when it started, it was going on in America for a long time. There were deities on toilet seats, and deities on slippers, and deities on beer bottles, and a bar with a Hindu theme, with gods and goddesses as waiters and waitresses, and pictures all over, and props everywhere. So that when AHAD started in America, what AHAD and then AHAD started taking up the issues against defamation, I can tell you that today maybe 5% of anti-defamation issues are issues against defamation of Hindu culture or Hindu Dharma, Sanskriti, is taken up by AHAD. 95% are taken up by other people, as it should be. But American Hindus were the pioneers. For first 5 years, they were the only ones doing it under AHAD banner. And then it took off and it went all over America. The same with internet, Utsoda. Today, there are hundreds of thousands of Hindu websites. But it all started with the Hindu Universe or hindunet.org. And that pioneering work of HinduNet brought together the global Hindu community like nobody else. And that is the innovative, positive contribution of American Hindus to the global Hindus. So then next, I would like to talk a little bit about the influence of American Hindus on global issues, on global Hindus when it comes to Hindu issues. This is an interesting category, Utsada. This is an interesting category because the American Hindu diaspora of later half of 20th century and 21st century is the first truly independent generation of Hindus. Not only well, because the Hindus were ruled, India was ruled for almost 1,000 years, and India became independent in 1947. Not only is the American Hindu community the first truly independent Hindu community born after independence of India, but also these are the people who are largely free of the colonial influence. Because if you go to India and if you study in India, at least you did in 50s and 60s and 70s and early and 80s, a lot of the academics and intelligentsia was dominated by left. And so when these people wrote the curriculum and wrote the textbooks, they still were propagating the colonial narrative about Hindus. So when Hindus became independent and when they migrated to America or they were born in America, they had the opportunity to look at Hindu Dharma as it in its more purer form, in a form that was not influenced by the colonial narratives of either the Islamic narrative or the Christian narrative that followed, the British narrative that followed. And if you look at the issues that American Hindus talk about today, they are much closer to the original pre-colonial version of Hindu Dharma than what is practiced anywhere in the world. And that is the positive impact of Hindu Dharma of America in America to the rest of the Hindus. I'll give you some examples, Utsada. So, for example, the discrimination based on skin color. Now, we did a whole show on that, where we showed that historically there was no color-based discrimination in Hindu Dharma. In fact, Bhagwan Shri Krishna had a dark skin. Shri Ram had a dark skin. Ravan, on the other hand, had a whiter skin. Right? So, the Kali Mata has a darker skin. And these are the gods and goddesses that are worshipped. Today, if you go and talk to a youth in America, a Hindu youth in America, they are very sensitive about the fact that there is, there are issues, there are discrimination based on skin color. And they can take pride, they can go back to the Hindu history and say, look, Hindu Dharma never discriminates based on skin color in its purest form, in its pre-colonial form. The same is true with gender equality. American Hindus absolutely understand the value of gender equality. And they can go back to their friends in US and to Hindus around the world and say, look, these are not the ideals just of today, but these are the pre-colonial Hindu ideals. Look, our gods and goddesses, we have not just God who are male, we have also goddesses. And that is a pre-colonial narrative that Hindus are once again propagating around the world for gender equality. Same with gender justice. The discrimination against LGBTQ community, for example, is in Hindu Dharma, in the pre-colonial Hindu Dharma, this kind of discrimination based on gender was never tolerated. In fact, it was accepted that people are equal. And those ideals are now once again, we have discovered them in America, the Hindu ideals, because we don't have the colonial baggage. We have discovered these ideas, and now these have become, these are now, we are now propagating these ideals, Hindu ideals, not just in America, but around the world, and especially to the Hindu diaspora around the world. The same is true for dowry and other social ills that came to Hindu society in past several hundred years. Again, in America, the Hindus in America do not practice these customs, and they are inspiring Hindus around the world, including Hindus in India, not to practice us. And the same is true for environment and stability, sustainability. We think of earth as Dharti Mata. We say that creator and the creation, come together, and we say that God pervades in every living being. That is our concept of environment. That is our concept of sustainability. And these ideals are now from American Hindus are now permeating these ideas around the world. And the idea of seva, if you look at the Seva International, the work the Ekal is doing and all of that, that is for everyone to see. Usada, some thoughts from you?
No, you hit it right, hit the nail on the head, Ajay bhai. The fact that American Hindus, and especially now than ever before, have been able to extricate themselves from the colonial hangovers of much of the Hindu society in the Indian subcontinent, and the layers of colonial narratives that has blinded many of the Hindu understandings in the Indian subcontinent. The fact that American Hindus have begun to come out of it has actually been a blessing, in the form that it has helped project a more universal and truer form of Hindu ideas to the rest of the world. And I think you described it quite well.
So that I want to end this by talking about two things that are important. One of them is the other contribution of American Hindus to the world, and that is the Hindu Heritage Month. As you know, so that we are celebrating Hindu Heritage Month, October 2021. And why I consider this to be the next major contribution of American Hindus to the world. If you look at the uh, if you look at the Hindu Heritage Month and the success that it has had in America now, where state after state is proclaiming Hindu Heritage Month. Over 100 organizations have joined as partners for the Hindu Heritage Month. There are literally a couple of hundred programs that have been planned as part of Hindu Heritage Month celebration, and we are getting a recognition and a request for participation from countries as far as South Africa and Thailand and Australia and UK and Canada and and India, of course. There's a lot of publicity in India as well. This is another platform that is an innovation of American Hindus that will now gain traction around the world. Utsada, there is a. I want to end with this. I want to say that uh, the what is the we have said that 20th century was the American century. I want to say that 21st century is also, despite of some people having doubts and all that, is also an American century, and it's also the Hindu century inspired by American Hindus. It is a century based on Hindu ideals. What would the global village look like if it's based on based on principles of universality? Principles of universality. We're not talking about a political union, but everyone coexisting with mutual respect. How would we counter in a Hindu century? We have to say how would we counter the authoritarian regimes? How would we bring about the equitable society? These are the things we want to achieve in 21st century, right? We want to have a global village. We want to counter authoritarian regimes. We want to have a more equitable society. We want to have universalism and not globalism. We want to have we want to have society, something that is good for society at a large, but not boxed in as communism or socialism. I think the way bring all of this would come together if we were to promote the ideals and the ideas of freedom, education, prosperity that emanate from Hindu Dharma and in what Hindus would describe as the Ram Rajya. How do American Hindus take Ram Rajya global? Okay. Your thoughts?
I think American Hindus are taking Ram Rajya global. I think they are, it's it's an incremental process. It's a process that's going to be impacting us for the next 100 years and the next 3 generations. And I think they are taking steps to make the world a better place in every way, economically, socially, educationally, and as you said, geopolitically. Geopolitical part is very something that I'm very much interested in, because that's the part we as American Hindus have the most influence on, given America's position, as I noted before. So I think, Ajay bhai, what we are doing now is going to impact the future of the world in many ways, and that's why it is extremely incumbent upon us to do it right, do it well, with the best effort that we can put out there. And I think I'm gonna leave it at that, Ajay bhai, because you already covered the more important aspect of what we have to be doing. So I think what you covered that very well, and I think it's up to us and the next generation of Hindus in America. And this is the most critical generation. I keep saying this to people everywhere I meet, that the American Hindu, the kid who is a 15-year-old American Hindu, from whether he's from the he or she is from the Indian subcontinent, whether he or she is from any other part of the world, but somebody who represents Hindu Dharma in America, a 15-year-old, a 20-year-old, 10-year-old, my daughter, they probably are the most empowered Hindus in the world, and probably will be the most empowered Hindus in the world in the next 20 to 50 years. And how they look at the world and how they impact the world as Hindus will have tremendous influence on the world, especially on India. You mark my words that India 50 years from now will have tremendous impact from American Hindus. So just putting it out there. I think, Ajay bhai, we went a long way over time, but your sound is muted. But we should go to our next segments. Ajay bhai, your mic is off. Yeah, your mic is still off. Your mic is still off.
Yeah, my apologies. I was sort of waiting for our guests from Boston Vigil to join us. They're having some difficulties in connecting to the live broadcast. So let me go to the next segment. So that, as always, our next segment is the Hindu Seva Act of the Week. And as we do every week for Hindu Seva Act of the Week, we have a special music. So here we go. Hindu Seva Act of the Week.
मनसा सततं स्मरणीयं मनसा सततं स्मरणीयं वचसा सततं वदनीयं मनसा सततं स्मरणीयं वचसा सततं वदनीयं लोकहितं.
So the Seva Charity Act of the Week for this week is once again Hindu Pact. We are embarking on some of the major programs, and these major programs include our Chingari project. It also includes some of the other key projects, such as our protests that we are going to do on Kashmir, where Hindus are getting killed, targeted killing of Hindus, Bangladesh, where there is targeted killing of Hindus, and we need to bring about a lot of awareness in American Hindu community. So please, this week again, we urge you to donate to Hindu Pact. Please go to hindupact.org /donate, or go to hindupact.org and click on the donate button and donate to Hindu Pact so that we can continue all the activities that we are doing in the service of Hindu community in America. So the next topic is, as always, the Hindu good news of the week. And here we go. And so that this week, the Hindu good news of the week, let me share this right screen with you so that you can see what we have selected as the Hindu good news of the week. And Utsada, I sometimes wonder why this should even be considered good news. But let me share this news with you and our viewers. So this is from Hindu Press International, which is a Hinduism Today news service, a very good news service. I urge everyone to take a look at it. And somebody went to the court and said that a young person who is under 18 years of age or cannot be initiated into sannyas. Now, these are religious practices where courts should not have any say. But so that it still went to the court, and fortunately, the court said that it is not court's business to make a ruling on who can and cannot be initiated into sannyasa. This is no different than parents choosing and the kids choosing their school they want to go to. And this one was, as you can read this news item from a couple of weeks ago, the High Court of Karnataka on Wednesday rejected a petition against anointment of a minor boy as 31st year of Udupi Shirur Mutt, while holding that there is no statutory or constitutional bar on a person aged below 18 being initiated into sannyas. The petition has not been able to make out a violation of any statutory provisions or any violation of constitutional right guaranteed to respondent. So these are the people, you know that there's a tremendous effort to bring down Hindu Dharma in Bharat from various perspectives. So there's a concerted effort, a multi-pronged concerted effort to bring down Hindu Dharma. And one way, this is the parampara or a tradition that is ongoing for thousands of years. Adi Shankara was a 9-year-old when he got initiated and into the sannyasa and then went around the country uh, promoting Hindu Dharma and talking about Hindu Dharma, singing the praises of Hindu Dharma, singing bhajans, composing bhajans. And for someone to go to court against these Hindu practices is to do all they're trying to do, Sada, is to bring down Hindu Dharma. I'm glad that even in the day and ages where mandirs are being taken over by government, uh, at least this particular practice was not banned, and the court came on the side of Hindus for a change. Thoughts? Sada, you're on mute.
Yeah. No, I figured. Imagine what would have happened had Adi Shankara been told that he cannot be a monk and travel around the country because imagine the impact it would have had on the future of Hindu Dharma to begin with. Given the fact that Adi Shankara probably played one of the most important roles in the last, I would say, 2000 years. That's a long time in actually influencing Hindu thoughts and Hindu practices and Hindu-ness around the world as we see it today. So imagine what would have happened. So that you never know what such events have impacts on. So I think I'm glad that the courts didn't interfere, and it's not their job to interfere. And I think it's good news. That's my thought on it.
All right, so with that, so we should go to now our next segment, the most anticipated segment of all times, and this time it's a somber one, it's a sad one, but we should talk about it nonetheless. And that Utsoda is, let me share the right screen with you, and maybe you can talk about it. This is a week where let me share the screen just a second so you can talk about it. This Utsada It's such a sad story, and we have to. I'm really, uh, disturbed that we actually have to talk about it in our 75th show. Uh, but how can we not? Two parts of India, Bengal and Kashmir, targeted killing of Hindus. Your thoughts?
Yes, also two parts of the Indian subcontinent that uh, that represent a story of what happens when Hindus are in minority. One is Bangladesh, a separate country, and the other is Jammu and Kashmir, which is still part of India, although there is a separatist movement going on there. And the target population, Hindus. Who are the people targeting them? Islamists. Uh, what happened during the entire week of Durga Puja in Bangladesh is really tragic, because it tells us what happens to Hindus when they are in minority anywhere in the world, especially in Muslim majority regions. Uh, and I think that is really something for Hindus around the world to think about, especially American Hindus to think about, because in the past so many years, uh, every time Hindus voiced their concerns about the way Hindus were being treated in many of these countries, nobody paid attention. And even today, I mean, what's jarring mostly is that you will hear all these pan-Islamist groups and the proxy Hindu organizations that get propped up by them, in the so-called the neo-left extremist groups. They keep targeting Hindus. They keep targeting Hindutva. They keep targeting everything that Hindus represent. But there is pin drop silence when Hindus get butchered in any Muslim majority area or anywhere else in the world. And that is actually that is the reason why we have to work harder and speak louder and make a real impact in terms of our influence on policy making around the world, uh, including the United Nations. So both unilateral and multilateral forums, Hindus have to be stronger and should be representing their voices. That will impact the Hindus on the ground who are now suffering in Bangladesh, the Hindus on the ground who are suffering in Kashmir, in Pakistan. This is very important. And a lot of people will say, this is something that politicians should do. No, this is not something that politicians will do. This is something that we all have to do at our own level, at what we are good at. If you are in a city council somewhere, if you are in Washington DC like I'm going to be joining a protest in the next couple of hours at 3 o'clock, that will be in front of the Bangladesh embassy. At 4 o'clock, that the same protest will go to the White House. These are Bangladeshi Hindus. I want to be an ally to them, because today what they are facing, their ancestors faced 20 years ago. And then 20 years ago, 3 million of them were butchered by Pakistan in 1971, 50 years ago from now. They are being targeted everywhere in the world, the Hindus. And if you go back to 1946, the same location where Hindus were targeted day before yesterday, and 2 Hindus were killed and an entire temple was destroyed, that exact same location called Noakhali saw 12,000 Hindus being butchered and another 50,000 forcibly converted 75 years ago in 1946, as part of the direct efforts by supporters of Pakistan to create Pakistan. So if you feel that in modern times, when you have iPhones, when you have video games, when you can sit at home and do Zoom calls, things have changed, no, they haven't. The technologies have changed. The minds are still the same. The hate is still the same against Hindus, and we have to work to towards stopping that. People in America, Hindus in America, have the power, have the resources, have the voice to actually help the Hindus in Bangladesh, to actually help the Hindus in Kashmir, not by going there, not by complaining and asking India to do something, but by being the voices in their community, by being the power in American politics, and eventually at the global platform. So that's my point on this issue.
So, tell us a little bit about the targeted killing in Kashmir, killings in Kashmir as well.
So, as you may have heard over the past couple of weeks, uh, after the removal of Article 370 and after the fact that the government of India was making efforts to integrate Kashmir into India's growth story. After India invested billions of dollars into building infrastructure in Kashmir so that businesses and talent and people could move from all over the Indian subcontinent, especially other parts of India, into Kashmir, bring progress. Uh, uh, that was not acceptable to Islamists. That's not acceptable to Pakistan. That's not acceptable to people who think like the Taliban. Progress doesn't mean anything to them. They would rather have women in hijabs at the age of 5. And that's why you have poor Hindus who are just making a living in Srinagar, selling street food. uh, Poor Hindus who have been native Kashmiris for thousands of years, who refuse to leave Kashmir Valley despite being under the threat of the gun, like Mr. Bindru, who sold medicines to old people and to people who are suffering from diseases. You could not have found a word, most benign person who could be there. These jihadis went and killed him in Srinagar last week. So this is this tragedy that Hindus face, and this is not going to go away by simply being doing yoga and by simply, I'm not saying don't do yoga, but I'm saying that your personal endeavors to be a better Hindu will not be impacting this unless you become the voice of these Hindus, unless you become the power that helps these Hindus. So
So
it's
the
for every Hindu to think about it.
so the you're the executive director of Hindu Pact. I want to know, what is Hindu Pact specifically doing that will actually, and this is my last question before we end because we are at time now, but I want to know from you that beyond vigils that we are doing, or issuing a press release, what is it that we are doing as Hindu Pact that will make a real difference?
So the most important thing that we can make as Hindu Pact in America
No,
is
that
to
is you, by the way, not me, but
no, but
you're the director.
me as an executive director of Hindu Pact cannot be the only person doing it.
Right. So, but
I'm
what
the
are you
instrument.
doing at Hindu Pact? What is Hindu Pact doing? Is the question.
Correct, and that's what I'm trying to explain, Ajay. As Hindu Pact doesn't exist just because of me. Hindu Pact exists because of everybody, including you, Ajay bhai. And everybody has to come to Hindu Pact, work with Hindu Pact, and empower Hindu Pact through their resources so that we can be that voice of the Hindu in Khulna or Dhaka or Noakhali. How can we be their voice? We talk to our lawmakers. I will talk to our lawmakers. I will go to the State Department. I will put the facts on the ground. I will ask them why the US ambassador in Dhaka has not made a statement yet. They haven't made a statement yet because we haven't been there to talk about it. I will be going there to talk about it. I will be asking why, and this is something that is very important for people to understand. This is not going to stop happening. It happens every year, every few years. And every year people get up in the morning, send a bunch of WhatsApp messages up, feeling sad about it, and then doing nothing about it, and then moving on to the next outrage. That's not going to change anything. You want to change something? Let me tell you something that you can do that is not actually happening now, but happened 50 years ago. Write to your lawmaker to get Pakistan declared a committer of genocide for the killing of 2.8 million Hindus in Bangladesh. You know why the people who destroyed the temple in Kumilla or Noakhali are able to do what they are doing? Because they know there are no consequences. If last year, if in March, all our Hindu community leaders, including myself, I have been begging our community leaders to work on this, but we haven't had the impact that we wanted. If we had all written to our lawmakers to sponsor a resolution that declared Pakistan a committer of genocide for 1971, the Muslims and the radical Islamists in Bangladesh who are burning temples now would have gotten the message that 50 years later, also they will be held accountable. Their kids and their kids will not get a US visa if they burn a temple today. And it may not mean much to many of them, but it means something to many of them who are in power. They want to send their kids to America because they are also wanting to come to the West. So make it count. Today, I will be going to the rally at the White House because I want the White House to see what Bangladeshi Hindus and Hindus around the world, especially those in Washington, D.C., have to say. I will be going to the State Department tomorrow or day after tomorrow. I'll be going to the lawmakers' offices in the day or two, talking about this. But again, I cannot do this alone. No individual can do anything alone. So Hindu Pact needs you. And if I could made a poster about that Americans made during World War II, I need you, pointing a finger at you. eh, that would be a wonderful thing to do. I will actually probably make a poster like that, because Hindu Pact needs everybody, and I will be happy to represent it. And
So
that's what we will do.
that was very, very passionately put. That is really, really the need of the hour, and I wanted your passion to come out, and it did. I so appreciate all that you have been doing for the Hindu community in America. I think you are setting an example for all the Hindus to follow, and under your leadership, I'm absolutely sure that Hindu Pact will make a difference to the lives of Hindus in America and elsewhere. So that I want to just a final announcement before we close for today's show, and that is there is a our own AHAD and Hindu Pact program that is going on right now as we speak. And let me know if you can see my screen. So I want to urge everyone. Now, some of these programs do kind of have a conflict with what we are doing today in Hindu Lounge, but I would urge people to pick one of the two as recording and one of the two as live and attend both of them. You can see here, Utsoda, there is a virtual conference that is going on right now as we speak. And this is a conference, a major conference on Hindu Dharma, Hindutva, and Hindu Dvesha. It is co-sponsored by the American Hindus Against Defamation, a companion project to Hindu Pact, and Dharma Civilization Foundation, DCF, and Hindu University of America. And it is a multi-day, so it's 2 days a week, Saturday and Sunday, October 16, 17, and it goes on for 4 weeks on every Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 1. And amazing speakers. They've lined up 20 of the most prominent speakers you can think of who are at the forefront of the Hindu thought movement, intellectual movement, who can talk about Hindu Dharma, Hindutva, and Hindu Dvesha, which is Hindu phobia. So please, it is our own project. It is a Hindu Pact project. It is a AHAD project. And this is what we are doing is the activism part. What they are doing is a much more academic part of it. I urge you to go and attend those programs. With that, Utsada, we wrap up our 75th show. I mean, who would have thought, right? I am so glad. I'm so glad that we are doing it, Utsada. I think we're making an invaluable contribution thanks to you. You have emerged in the last 75 weeks as a well-recognized, well thought of Hindu intellectual in America. You're in-demand speaker, and I cannot thank you enough for all the contributions that you're making, not just to Hindu Lounge, not just to Hindu Pact, but to Hindu community in America. And I'm sure that within next year or two, you'll be doing the same thing for global Hindu community. So I cannot think of a better person to partner with than you, because you really bring the intellectual heft to this show. So thank you, Utsada, for doing this. Thank you, everyone, for joining for 75 weeks. You've been joining us, and we will continue this every Sunday at 11 o'clock Eastern on Hindu Lounge, which is brought to you by Hindu Pact, which is a policy research and advocacy initiative of World Hindu Council of America, or WHPA. Utsada is Utsav Chakravarti. He is the executive director of Hindu Pact. I'm Ajay Shah. I'm the president of World Hindu Council of America. And as always, Utsada, we end the show with a special tune that is created just for this episode of Hindu Lounge by no other than Desi Bells. And amazing 75th anniversary tune. I'm going to, as we close the program, please stay tuned. It's a 3-minute tune, and it's a special tune based on ragas, classical music ragas created by Decibel. And here we go, Utsada, on to Decibel. Thank you again, and namaste everyone for joining.
Namaste, everybody.
And here we go with our tune. And let me share the screen. We're not gone yet. Please do stay in. Please do stay logged in. Here is the music, and there we go.